Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for the highly anticipated closing keynote of the day. The topic for this session is sustaining the focus on customer experience in good and challenging times. And without taking any more of your time, may I please invite Mr. Ian Golding, Global Customer Experience Specialist, with a huge round of applause.
Oh, thank you so much, Nipa. What a lovely introduction. And hello to everyone that is listening in to this very important day of acquiring more knowledge on the subject of customer experience. It is such an honor to be able to share knowledge with all of you today as we continue to experience such a challenging world. The last 16 months have been among the most challenging that we faced in living memory. And so for me to be able to share my thoughts with you on how to sustain the focus on customer experience during such difficult times, but also good times, is a really valuable thing for me to be able to do. As Nipa said, I am a global customer experience specialist, and I've had the honor of visiting India many times, actually. And I've always been hugely moved by the passion and desire for acquiring knowledge, specifically in the field of customer experience. As I said, the last 16 months have been remarkably challenging. We have, in whatever industry we represent, been exposed to some of the greatest challenges that we have ever faced organizationally. And they are challenges that we potentially never really anticipated having to face. And as these challenges have hit us, what we have recognized around the world is the importance that the challenges have had on human emotion. When the pandemic hit in March 2020, despite the fact it had started its emergence earlier than that, human beings started to experience a wave of emotions. For many of us, this was a hugely scary episode. For many businesses, many employees around the world, immediately we were thrust into a world of complete uncertainty, and many people started to despair. How on earth am I going to live? How am I going to make money? How are we going to continue to operate? But interestingly, when the pandemic hit, for others, it was an amazing opportunity. Those who were already very digitally savvy were suddenly in the perfect position to leverage the fact that people were not as mobile as they were able to be. And so this point about human emotion is really very important, because business has always been about human interaction. But what this pandemic has done is very much bring to the fore the importance of being conscious in understanding that human emotion. And as the human emotion changes, as the environment around us changes. What you're looking at on the screen is an adaptation of the Kotter change curve. And it brilliantly brings to life what has happened to customers and employees, in other words, human beings, over the last 16 months. When the pandemic hit, we as human beings went through a mixture of quite scary emotions, from fear to shock to denial. We then descended to a degree into anger, frustration. But as the pandemic has continued, it's very much led to a state of apathy and confusion. What is going to happen? What's the future going to look like? Is this ever going to end? And it's so important for organizations to be conscious of this, because unless we're able to have an effect on changing that emotion, giving our employees and customers a sense of optimism, positivity, not only will it be very difficult for our people to have the motivation to do what's necessary to serve the customer, it will become increasingly challenging for customers to find organizations that truly understand the situation that they're in, so they're able to serve those customers in an effective way. And this is why understanding the importance of customer experience and customer centricity and the role it plays in driving that human emotion is more important than ever before. It is critical in 2021 and beyond that all organizations have a crystal clear understanding of the difference between customer service, customer experience, and customer centricity. Because the better they understand this, the more likely it is that they will be able to meet the needs and expectations of employees and customers in this rapidly changing world that we live in. Customer service is and has always been very important, but it is vital that we recognize that customer service is not enough. Customer service is not the same thing as customer experience. Customer service is just one element of the experience that an organization delivers to its customers. In exactly the same way that sales is, that marketing is, that operations is, that logistics is, that everything is. Customer experience is the representation of everything an organization does that enables its customers to interact with its products and services. Every single employee in your organization has a role to play in delivering that experience, whether they interact directly with the customer or not. And now more than ever before, every single employee needs to understand that, needs to understand the role they play in delivering the experience. Because in this rapidly changing world, not only do we need to recognize that experience and the role we play in it, we have got to be able to continuously improve the experience to become better able at meeting the needs and expectations of customers. However, whilst recognizing the experience is critical, we will only unlock the true benefit of the experience if we're able to deliver it in a customer-centric environment. Customer centricity is not the same thing as customer experience. It is just one element of the experience that an organization delivers to its customers. Customer centricity is all about creating the environment, the culture that enables your people to think and act in the interests of the customer every time they do anything. Every time they have a conversation, make a decision, perform a task. That's what it means to be customer centric. And you don't need me to tell you that much of the time, that is not what organizations are doing. Much of the time, we're thinking and acting in the interests of the business, of the organization. If we want to deliver sustainable growth, we can only do so when we are delivering the experience within that customer-centric environment. And if we're going to be able to improve the experience in that customer-centric environment, it is also vital that we understand what makes the experience in the first place. Because all experiences are constructed of three core elements: the functional, the accessible, and the emotional. The functional element of all experiences represents your products and your services. Most organizations on earth were created to differentiate on that functional element alone. The problem that we face today is that unless your product or service is completely unique, it is very difficult, if not impossible, to differentiate on the functional element alone. Because if it's not unique, your product or service is not unique, you can't differentiate it on it. The pharmaceutical industry is a great example of this, because most pharmaceutical companies have, for most of their existence, relied on products that have been protected by patents. No one else has been able to make them. The difficulty for that industry is when the patent runs out and anyone can make it. And this is why the pharmaceutical industry, the financial services industry, all industries have had to look beyond the functional to differentiate. And many now are focusing even more on the accessible element. How easy is it to interact with how easy is it for your customer to interact with your products or services? Nipa said that if you are engaging throughout today, you've got the chance to win Amazon vouchers. Amazon are the world's greatest example of the best accessible experience. Amazon have focused more and more on making the retail experience as accessible as possible. And as a result, they've created the most accessible retail experience on earth. What's fascinating about Amazon is they sell nothing that's unique. They sell exactly the same stuff as everyone else. What differentiates Amazon is not their products and services, it is how easy they've made it to access those products and services. However, whilst you can't have an experience without the functional and the accessible, it is the third element that's the most important of the three. Because the third element is the emotional one, which represents the way the experience makes your customer feel. And the reason that's the most important of the three is because the way the experience makes your customer feel is what you are most likely to remember. And with all experiences, customers will remember one of three things. They'll remember very good things, they'll remember very bad things, or they will remember nothing at all. And it is that third emotional outcome that is the worst of the three. Because if your customer has no recollection of the experience, it means there is no emotional connection between you and the customer. And so the next time your customer chooses to do something, previous experiences are unlikely to influence what they choose to do. What you need to ask yourselves is, what is your customer remembering about their experience with you today? Are they remembering the good? Are they remembering the bad? Or are they remembering nothing? And with that in mind, what is the objective? Ultimately, if you want to differentiate on the whole experience, how do you get there? This I call the customer experience continuum. And every organization on earth sits somewhere along this line. To be able to differentiate on the whole experience, you would need to get to the right-hand side of this line. Regrettably, the overwhelming majority of organizations in the world sit on the left-hand side of this line, delivering what we call random or unexpected experiences. In other words, as a customer, you never quite know what's going to happen. And that is largely driven because most legacy organizations were not created to focus on the experience. They were created to differentiate on products and services. And so they are very, very focused on processes, tasks, and products. On the right-hand side, the most customer-centric organizations in the world differentiate on the whole experience, not just products and services. This is where organizations like Amazon come in. I have to make it clear that the overwhelming majority of organizations on the right-hand side were created that way. To be able to get to that right-hand side. In other words, for a legacy business to transform itself to get there, it must first have a very clear understanding in the middle of this continuum, where you would be able to determine what you want the experience to be in the first place, what we call the desired or intentional experience. To get to the middle, those are the characteristics that you must have in place. This idea of differentiating on the whole experience must be a shared vision. Too often, customer experience is the brainchild of one person who's dragging everyone else with them, kicking and screaming. It doesn't work that way. This needs to be the collective vision of the organization. Everyone in your business or organization needs to be given the time and ability to think. Giving people time to think, or the ability to think, when they've spent most of their career doing what they've been told, is easier said than done. At this stage of transformation, they might not always be able to act in the interests of the customer, because transformation is not just about mindset, it's also about transforming legacy processes and systems, which can take a lot longer. The immediate objective is to change the way people think. If you can change the way people think, they become more accountable when things go wrong. To get to the middle, we also have to assess how we measure the experience. We cannot just focus on what's important to the business. We've got to balance that with a measurable understanding of what's important to the customer and the employee. But the most important thing of all, to get to the middle of this chart and beyond, is that it can only happen with good cross-functional governance. The only way you can deliver the experience you want your customers to have is if you are able to break down the silos. It can only happen when every team, every department, every function is prepared to link arms and work together to deliver the experience together. Giving people that ability to think, breaking down the silos so people work together. This is all about people. And my favorite business quote of all time is from the marketing guru Simon Sinek, who says that 100% of customers are people. 100% of employees are people. If you don't understand people, you don't understand business. And that is why underpinning all of this is the most important principle of all when it comes to the field of customer experience. And that is the principle of empathy. If we are going to be able to sustain the focus on customer experience during these very challenging times and deliver that sustainable growth that we're looking for, we need to really understand the importance of embedding this focus on human interaction, recognizing the importance of empathy, because there is a direct connection between empathy and sustainable growth. And this is why. The better able an organization is at empathizing with its customers, the more likely it is that its customers will become fans, advocates of the organization. Fans become loyal. Loyal fans come back to you more often, spend more money, and tell others about you. And if they come back to you more often, spend more money, and tell others about you, you'll make more money. It's really not complicated. So, to conclude, there are 5 things that I urge you to consider doing, not just now, but going forward to sustain the focus on customer experience. These are the 5 things. All of them are underpinned by human interaction. The first, it is critical that everyone in your organization knows the direction that you're going in. You need to have a very clear sense of direction. It is really important that if you want to deliver good customer experiences, you must first determine if you are delivering good employee experiences. The way you treat your people is the way your people will treat your customers. And with that in mind, you have got to be able to give your people time to think. If we don't give our people time to think, if they're just focusing on tasks, they will not be able to empathize. But at the same time, we must spend much more time listening to the customer and listening to our people and acting on what they're telling us accordingly. And the final tip that I believe organizations must focus on is the importance of omni-channel. It is so important that we do not become sidetracked by digital. Digital technology is vital, but all customers are very likely to interact across multiple channels, and we must think about the omni-channel, omni-product journey, not channels independently of each other. This has been, as I say, one of the most challenging periods in living memory. But whilst, as I've been told, it might be raining in many parts of India right now, and it has been a very, very difficult time for so many of us, there are definitely cases for us to be optimistic about the future. If nothing else, the importance of human-to-human interaction has been highlighted by this pandemic. And if that is the case, that can only be a good thing. Once again, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me. I hope you found that interesting and of value. If you want to know more, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. And on that note, I shall pass back to Nipa.
Thank you so much, Ian, for that thought provoking presentation. Like you rightly said, that businesses need to be accessible, functional, and most importantly, emotional. After all, human emotions are the driving force behind all of our actions, isn't it? For example, if you enjoyed the session, you felt the emotion of joy, and so you may go to the social wall and drop in some compliments and positive comments. I know I'm going to do that, and I hope you will too. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we come to the end of Marconde's Sea Extract. I hope you had an enjoyable, edifying experience that will help you in your businesses. I would like to thank all of our partners once again, our presenting partner, Dell Technologies, our platinum partners, Tata Communication, Commvault, IBM, Logitech, NetApp, Hitachi Systems Microclinic, and Hitachi Vantara. Our gold partner, Juniper Networks, Exclusive Networks, Tenable, Zoom, Amazon Internet Services, Automation Anywhere, and Reddington. Our associate partners, Cloudera, MoEngage, and Samsung SDS, our supporting association, Tata Security Council of India, and of course, our media partners, Analytics Insight and Silicon India. May I also thank our esteemed speakers for the gift of their time and knowledge for making their sessions so informative and so enriching, and of course to my wonderful audience. It's been a long day, ladies and gentlemen, and we truly appreciate you giving us your time and undivided attention. With that, it is time for me, your host, Nipa, to bid you farewell. I hope you have a wonderful day ahead. My best wishes to the nominees of the Economic Times Most Promising Tech Marketeers 2021 awards. Thank you once again. Namaste.